most terrifying horror film I've ever seen is Wolf Creek. The poster alone ruined my childhood, created a horror icon, and made a generation of people scared of the outback. But as is tradition with all good horror films, Hollywood had to make a sequel, and 9 years later, they released the much more unknown Wolf Creek 2. For the sake of my obsessive need to be a completionist, plus, with the newly announced Wolf Creek 3, I sat down and watched the second one for the very first time. And within a few minutes, I realised something had gone incredibly wrong. Because somehow, this movie had forgotten what made Mick Taylor scary in the first place. Let's take it back to the original and compare meeting Mick for the first time. Our characters have met him on the side of the road, and although they're creeped out by the situation, he appears friendly and like your everyday larrikin. It's not like they have a super choice in the matter, but they end up taking a lift back to his compound. We spend so much time building up to the moment his true intentions are revealed. We watch them go deeper and deeper into the outback, realizing how alone they are, and spend even more time chatting and getting to know Mick by the campfire. It's here the audience start to really realize how cooked this film is about to be. All of us probably realized it wasn't going to be a lovely country outing, but John Jarratt does a masterclass in slowly revealing himself. He's in control of every moment, and you see this as he sits in complete silence as one of the backpackers insults him. He just lets the air drain out of the room. I don't know about everyone else, but I think that was more scary than any of the murders that were to follow. Now let's have a look at the second one. And I mean, heads up to anyone who cares about spoilers. I'm not doing plot points, but I do talk about some of the kills and whatnot, so spoiler alert if you care about those kind of things. In number 2, he talks to the police officers who pull him over for what? 2 minutes before going full Rambo and murdering them both. Do you mind just giving me a little bit of foreplay before we begin? He went from a calculated mass murderer to a man who just lost his multi at the pub and just had one too many Bundys. For the rest of the film, he does not think twice about killing. There's no build-up, no stalking, no even trying to hide his crimes. He just indiscriminately shoots and leaves as much evidence as he possibly can. I do understand that you can't really reveal his character now that the first is over. You only get one first impression, and yes, us as an audience now do know what we're in store for. So tell me how we went from a character that was so realistic that a real-life murder trial delayed the release of the film to a man who throws a truck off a cliff for the love of the game. You're in the middle of the fucking outback. And I mean, he doesn't have a car, so he's gonna have to murder again just to get a ride home, and you're in the middle of the fucking outback. I mean, what happens if another car doesn't drive past for a while? You're just gonna fucking stay there. Come on. He's no longer a hunter who uses his skills to make backpackers disappear, but a generic slasher villain who just uses brute force every encounter. Wolf Creek 2 Taylor would have been caught in a week tops regardless of the remoteness. It's really tonally confused, this film, and it's not scary or filled with despair enough to live up to the original, and not silly enough to really be that fun slasher B film. I went over this in my original review, but if you spend time at a country pub, you've met Mick already. A friendly but off-colour bloke who will do anything to help someone, and the only thing he'll ask for a return is a slap. I mean, minus the murdering, but we're talking before we know this. It's this real-life depiction with that touch of Aussie folklore that really built the icon that is Mick Taylor. I love how much him being that Aussie bushman larrikin is an integral part of his character. It's like a throwback to these films like The Silver Brumby or The Man from Snowy River. You for sure don't need that background to be scared by this, but I'm telling you, being Aussie adds some layers to this. But in the second, unfortunately, I think they realised how iconic he is and decided that that's a good reason just to up his screen time by 900%, thinking that's what made it special. He's louder, more annoying, and John Jarratt feels like now he's doing an impression of what he was in the original. They ham up how Australian he is to the point where it's more an SNL skit. It's just an excessive way to write the character. The strength of the original was that Mick was like the boogeyman, popping up in these small doses to commit these atrocities. It's the sparing nature that makes these scenes so impactful. With all that said, I do think this film is an interesting case study, and it's not that far off being really interesting, and really close to being a great B movie, but it just sort of fails to commit to the bit. Because look, I'm all for silly, over-the-top, higher body count sequels. I think there's a world where you make him the most ridiculous slasher villain, doing incredibly creative and crazy kills. But instead, we're kind of stuck in this weird middle tone, where he's not zany enough to be fun, and not scary enough to be like the first. I think the biggest issue is if you're gonna go with this less realistic route and go more zany, his kills have to be a bit more creative, because right now they're sort of just lackluster. He either shoots or stabs them with pretty little fanfare. There's never a moment like the head on a stick scene that really sticks in your mind. The truck being hauled off a cliff or him hitting the ruse is that moment where it starts to go a bit more silly, but they never really go for it. And I mean, Mick knows this landscape better than anybody. Surely he'd be a little bit more creative with how he stalks and tortures his victims. I mean, shit, got sheds, spiders, snakes, hunting gear, cars, cliffs, slaughterhouse equipment, and the best we did is just sort of sneak up on someone when we shoot him. There's a fun B-movie hiding in here. They just forgot how much of an advantage he does have with this being his playground. Just use the Outback a little bit more and at least make a scene we can talk about once the credits roll. It's not realistic anymore, and they just didn't replace it with anything entertaining enough to sell the bit. Now look, I have been a grumpy little prick about this film, and I want to say there was a brief moment that almost saved this. The ending of this film made me realize why the first one haunted my dreams and why I was excited to make that video in the first place. After a very, very fucking annoying game of Aussie trivia, Mick's victim escapes and starts running through his lair. And look, I had to switch off my brain because having a lair is cartoonish in itself, but Jesus Christ, this is the horror film I really came for. It's creepy, filled with suspense and dread, and we watch Mick's victim run room for room, seeing what he's truly faced with. And the jump scare of the half-dead woman just begging to be killed, Jesus Christ, that painted my undies. It's absolutely no coincidence that the scariest part of this film, Mick, is not in frame. It's the audience preempting what's about to happen that really makes this terrifying. It reminds me of what I still think is one of the most effective shots in horror history, where Liz Hunter wakes up with her hands bound in the shed. It makes it so much worse imagining what he's capable of, and the victim's perspective really is what makes these films work. It should always be a fight for survival, and trying to escape a killer who is so far ahead of you in skill. The victim should always be front and center, and this is the first time the film understands this and gives us what made the first one so effective in the first place. I mean, until they decide to redo the ending of the first and just let him escape, shit choice that makes no sense, and again, makes Mick look like a dickhead. But hey, at least I can tick this off my list and be fully prepared for Wolf Creek 3. Hopefully I have a much better time with that, and John Jarratt has done press saying his script is so much more in tone to the first. And I also want to say, I don't think this sequel is a cash grab, and this franchise does have real legs. Serial killers need multiple victims, and we haven't even tried to have a police investigation yet. Well, in the movies anyway, as I haven't seen the TV show. As long as they pick a lane and either go with the tone of the first or just go fucking bonkers, we're in for a ripper time. Yeah, sorry I was a bit more negative on this one. I thought about not covering it, but I kind of pride myself on completing sets of films, and it just didn't feel right with the third one coming not to have a video on both. So yeah, I mean, let me know if there's any other like crappy sequels or more unknown stuff you want me to cover. Let me know if there's anything you want me to review next, and yeah, bye.